got out of work to finish the second part of this video. Earrings going back on. They're not bothering me anymore. Hopefully the sounds of cars going by are not too distracting. I changed my major. And I had gone into film school with my own preconceived notions about what film was supposed to be. I thought that Hollywood was the only way, and I thought that I knew I had very little respect for independent film, and I would look at independently produced TV shows and low-budget films like, oh my god, who wants to watch that? You know, probably like 90% of America does. So one of the things that pleasantly surprised me most was how I was exposed to all different types of film when I went in to the film program. I had taken classes with a professor who became one of my favorite professors there, and he taught exclusively about independent film and certain subgenres of it, like mumblecore films, which are, you know, very low budget and typically about young people and relationships, and you know, these are films that are maybe made with the most primitive equipment, but they had a lot of heart and they had a lot of soul. What else I really love about that course is that I could look at these films and suddenly it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, because it was like, oh, I don't have to wait for the Hollywood fairy to tap me on the head. I can just start creating my own content right away. And in terms of storytelling, these films were different as well, in the way they were structured, and the way they approached their topics, and the way they had their characters speak to each other, and it was just so different from what I've been used to, and I just suddenly wanted more and more and more. You know, people, like, we watched a lot of Cassavetes in this courses, and we watched a lot of, we watched Joe Swanberg, we watched Andrew Bujalski, we watched Kelly Reichardt, we watched all kinds of indie directors, and I sort of changed over the course of that film. I thought that indie film was not worth caring about at all, but then once I became exposed to the right ones, and to the ones that really touch my heart and touch my soul, and I would not have had that experience had I not gone to the school. I'm not saying you can't just look this up on your own on Google. You certainly can, but it's not the same as having somebody there to guide you through it and try to help you digest what is going on and try to challenge you in the ways you think about film. And I had that with my professor. Now we're getting more into, I'm going to start talking a little bit about my screenwriting classes. I like the screenwriting professors I had. They certainly, the one I had for screenwriting too, I remember he had said, I don't care so much about you making necessarily a Hollywood blockbuster type film. It can be any type of film you want to make, and he was pretty lenient about that, which I appreciated. Some of them were just so rigid in their beliefs of how a film should be structured that it was almost like, okay, am I making a film that you would want to see, or am I making a film that I would want to see? And believe me, I know I'm not saying that people's opinions don't count. After all, you are making the film for them. But it's like, you know, why does it matter if this thing takes 15 pages to happen versus 10 pages? You know, what if you want to draw something out a little more because that's what it needs? What if you want to develop something more? What if you want to move the climactic moment to a different point? I mean, to a much later point than it's supposed to, maybe. I mean, who knows? I don't think a moviegoer is going to be able to tell the difference between pages 10 and 15 on a script. Believe me, they don't. They don't. Oh, and another thing I want to go after, if you ever hear a film professor saying that every minute of script equals a page, that is BS. It's not true. Because I know one time I wrote a film according to that, I thought, oh, a minute is a page. 45 minutes, 45 pages, done. No, my film turned out 37 minutes. So you got to remember that actors talk fast. A lot of people can't seem to accept the idea that professors are human. They can be wrong too. You don't have to take everything they say as gospel. You are sometimes going to run into professors who might not know best. I'm not going to begrudge anybody if you know that that's what you have to do to get a good grade. And if you, I mean, even if it goes against what you feel, hey, I'm not gonna judge anybody. Do what you gotta do, but you know that once you get out, you can do whatever. A lot of times, you might feel afraid to disagree with what they're saying because they basically hold the key to your future in some ways, right? They have your grade in their hands. Is film school worth it? And I definitely say yes. For me, just everything I just talked about, it helped me expand my mind when it came to the critical thinking aspect of looking at film, and it influenced me to challenge myself when it came to making film to see what I can do differently, what I can do better. And I am just so eternally grateful for my independent film professor who believed in me and believed in everybody else and challenged us to be the best we could be, and knew that we were capable of looking at some films that were pretty intellectually demanding, and he guided us through it. And I don't know how I would have been able to be exposed to these works and understand those without his guidance, so I'm glad for that. You might go in, you might not like it, and please don't blame me for it, because your girl cannot afford to get sued right now for false advertising or anything. Not that I could. I mean, I don't belong to a school. I'm not endorsing particular schools or anything, so I guess you can't. I don't know. If you feel you're just stuck in your own little box of what film is and you feel like you want to do more, then I highly suggest going into a film program if you feel like that is right for you. And if maybe you don't want to go for 4 years or even 2 years, or if you don't think you can afford it, and if you don't want a traditional school environment, hey, that's totally fine. That's not right for everybody. But I mean, I highly recommend that you, maybe if you don't want to go to school in that way, maybe you find somebody who's a cinephile or somebody who is an actual director, and you can sit and pick their brain a little bit. You could watch this channel because there's going to be a bunch of stuff about that and my own experience, though I don't consider myself a substitute for a good professor. Please, I'm just some chump who is just making films. That's all. And if you enjoy writing papers, because my program was not a very test-based program at all. There's a lot of paper writing, and there were quite a few projects. I had to write many scripts, both short and long, and I even made short films or two. I'm just telling you my experience. It may differ from yours or your friends, so I could like write a book on my experience, but we won't have time. And I probably got to go inside. My mom is waiting for me. And thank you so much. Have a lovely day, or I guess night, because the sun is setting at this point. But catch you later.